how daunting it can feel to start over, and how much of a failure you can feel like, right? Of just like at this point in time in your life, you think that you're supposed to have it all figured out, or you're supposed to be maybe farther along, etc. It kind of sucks. There are certain things that we say we won't do because of what we think other people may think of it. This is all of our first time doing it. Like, no one has a manual. So I want to propose that same thing to you and encourage you to possibly see it that way, because that really helps me and it really freed me. Hey, what's up? It's Michelle. Welcome back to Chats with Michelle. What is going on? Hello there. First things first, I do want to say that yes, you absolutely see a Christmas tree behind me. So if you are listening on podcasts, there is a Christmas tree behind me. So go ahead and judge if you would like. In fact, our entire home has already been decorated for Christmas. So, yes, we are absolutely those people. So, now that the elephant is out of the room, and you can now judge freely. What I've decided to do today is I've decided to look at my notes, because I typically have a running list of different topics, ideas, things that I've heard, all the things, whether I want to chat about it or just something that I just wanted to dissect on my own. So I just said that I will just talk about a few things that I have been seeing recently online, in life, etc. And one of those things that I've been seeing a lot on my timeline is starting over, and the conversation of starting over, and more so like in your 30s, and as someone who is now in their 30s, and how daunting it can feel to start over, and or feel like you need to start over, and just what that is, and just everything that it comes with, and the idea of having to start over, and how much of a failure you can feel like, right? Of just like at this point in time in your life, you think that you're supposed to have it all figured out, or you're supposed to be maybe farther along, etc. And that whole notion of just like just like, I guess, what like society tells you where you should be or what you should have at this time. And where are you with that, and have you had to start over? And even with me, I think I'm in the season of starting over. I'm not really sure yet, really, of like what that is for me, but a part of me, there is a part of me that is needing to start over, and it kind of sucks. I recently heard it this way, and I think it's so great. There's a young lady that I started following recently, and she talked about how she does her life in phases, and it was honestly just so incredibly rewarding, and such a great thought process to think of, and think of that way, where she said, she sees her life in phases. So it's not necessarily that the feeling of, oh, starting over or whatever. It's more so of just like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing now. So I want to propose that same thing to you and encourage you to possibly see it that way, because that really helps me and it really freed me. So instead of being like, oh, like you're starting over, it's like, well, this is what I'm just doing in this phase. Because literally what she was saying, like, so she's right now, she's like a creator. Well, I think before she was like in finance of some sort, right? And then she ended up finding her way down this like creator space. So she's creating now. And then she was saying how in the next phase of her life she's probably going to be an esthetician. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. And she said it very matter of factly. She was like, yeah, I do my life in phases. So yeah, in my next phase, and there's no like shame behind pivoting or doing the next thing. And I think that's where I am at, of just being like, no, it's okay to now be in the next phase, and this being the next thing that you're doing, and not feeling any shame behind it. I think there is a lot of shame when, like, possibly you're at an age in life. Because listen, we know if you're online, if you're chronically online, unfortunately, how I can be sometimes. I've gotten better at it, but if you're just online, or if you heard anything, especially as a woman, they tell you once you turn 30, it's like your whole entire life ends, right? And God forbid if you're not married. Oh my goodness, like you just feel like you're what are you, just rotten milk, which is not true. If you are a woman who is 30 plus and not married, that's not true. Your life is so much more than that, right? But you can kind of feel like, man, I don't have it all figured out. I thought I would have a little bit more figured out, but I don't. And then you feel like a failure, and it's just like, no, it's not failure. It's just the next phase. And that brings me to like the next thing that I kind of want to talk about. And that is a conversation that my husband was telling me that he had over the weekend, I believe it was, with some people at church, that they were having this conversation, and he just told me just a brief bit of it. And basically, the question at hand, I feel like the whole topic was about, are you okay with not being important? And I've shared this a little bit before in the past about just being having contentment where the Lord has you currently in your life. And I just felt like that was such a deep question, and it was so real, because I think if we were honest, and I feel like so many of us are this way, we all want to be impactful, we all want to do something really great in our lives. And but there's just like that balance of just being impactful, doing something really great, but also um like finding contentment in the midst of it all. And when I talk about having a big ego, I don't mean, because ego, I think sometimes when we think about ego, we think about someone who's like maybe really arrogant and obnoxious, and that those people have big egos too. But I think some on the other side of ego, where we sometimes we don't think about, is the part where we're constantly thinking of ourselves. So like, what are people gonna think? um is this, am I going to be embarrassed? When you talk about like pivoting or starting over, right? It's like, well, what are people going to think if I do this thing? I'm going to be super, I just said that, but just constantly thinking about yourself, and also think about what other people are going to think about you, but rather than just having the audacity and being bold enough to just do what it is that you need to do, or do what it is that God has called you to do, or do what it is that like who cares, right? Who cares? And I think sometimes there are certain things that we say we won't do because of we think, because of what we think other people may think of it. Does that make sense? So yeah, I just thought that was just really, really, I just thought that was a really, really impactful and profound conversation and thought to have. And that's actually something that I would like to possibly even go deeper in, but more so like in a group setting, just because I don't think me just talking to myself on with a mic and a camera is the most helpful. But what would you answer? How would you answer that question? Like, are you okay with not being important, right? And to answer that question, frankly, I think I am okay with that. I think I am okay with supporting, right? Because I love the idea of working with a team, and like, so I don't know. That was just one thought with talking about having to start over. It just made me think about like our parents, right? And how we are all doing this life thing. This is all of our first time doing it. Like, no one has a manual. I remember I was talking to my mom recently, and she was saying how, like, when you become a parent, like, you don't get a manual, like, you don't get instructions. She's like, everything else that we have in life, we get instructions on how to do it, right? If you buy a table, they're going to give you instructions, a manual of how to put it together. If you buy a credenza, you buy, like, usually when you get things, you get instruction manual. But when it comes to this thing called life, whether you're becoming a parent or you're just living it on your own, right? You don't necessarily have children, but you're just figuring out life on your own. Like, there is no manual to it. And I was saying like the whole thing about giving your parents grace, because I know like a lot of people are just holding on to a lot of like resentment or frustrations with their parents, or possibly like what they did or what they didn't do, etc. And as I've gotten older, I've just learned to really give my parents grace, both my parents, honestly, because it's kind of just like they were also figuring out life too. This was also their first time doing life. And they also, in ways that I know or don't know, had to pivot. And even though I don't necessarily agree with everything that's happened, as now I am older and I'm, like I said, newly in my 30s or whatever, and I'm nowhere even near I have nowhere near the kind of responsibilities that my own mother had at my age. And I'm like, and I'm out here just struggling, trying to figure it out. So I couldn't even imagine what she had to try to figure out on her own. So it's just, again, I think giving yourself grace and understanding that no one really knows what they're doing. Some people may be a little bit more tactful, right? And maybe they have more of a better plan, or maybe their plan is going better, or seemingly going better because you don't even really know. Or maybe things are going through, or maybe things are a little bit smoother for them at the time being. But at the same time, everyone's figuring it out. And I just, it's freeing to not only give my parents grace, but then giving them grace, giving myself grace and understanding, and wanted to encourage you to give yourself grace as well, and understanding that everyone is figuring it out. I hope that this resonated with you, and I hope that it just kind of just gave you some peace, or just made you feel a little bit better inside of knowing that like we're all figuring it out. And this is just, don't see it as a period, see it as a comma, and this is just the next phase. And to, it might not be easy, right? It could be different, but at the same time too, don't beat yourself, try not to be so hard on yourself. And I understand that there's a lot going on in this world, so it's not to make light of it, but it's also to say that, like, to say that I see you, you're not alone. I was gonna say something else, but I was like, that's so fake, like I don't want to say that. And it's so, I just want to say that I see you, that you're seen, that your feelings are valid. You're not alone. Don't think that you're alone. You are seen, you're heard. And I am praying for you. I pray for this audience, and I'm praying for you, and I hope that you would get the clarity that you're looking for. So, with that being said, thanks so much for chatting with me today. If you found this chat valuable, please consider sharing it with someone who may also find this chat valuable. And while you're at it, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because listen, we've got so much to chat about. Bye.